the entire car is scratched. What do? Well, today, we're gonna show you how to fix that. Hey guys, Anthony with the Rag Company, and in today's exciting video, I'm gonna show you how to polish your car and remove some scratches, utilizing a dual action polisher. DA polishers are without doubt probably one of the safest form of polishing your paint, and we've come such a long way in terms of tools and machines. Anybody can use these. Yes, you watching this right now, you can use this. So we're gonna start off by talking about the tools and products we need to do this job and this kind of work. Now, there are so many different types of machines and chemicals, compounds, pads, towels. It's very overwhelming. Let's break this down as simple and basic as we possibly can. What we need is a machine. We need a dual action machine. I'm using a Rupes LHR 15 Mark III. All this is a 15 millimeter polisher with a 5-inch backing plate. This is the plate on it that spins as well as kind of rotates. It's a dual action, meaning that not only is it spinning, but the whole mechanism itself is like oscillating, right? With like a 15 millimeter throw. So that's why we call it that. So a dual action is a great starting point because, again, this is a type of machine that's really easy on the hands. It's really easy to use. I'm using the Rupes because this is hands down one of my favorites. It's not the cheapest by any means, but this is like what I consider a long-term investment. This is corded. They have different cordless versions out there nowadays. In terms of preference, I still kind of reach for corded most of the time, but cordless options are great as well if you're looking to just not have this hanging off your shoulder. The next thing I want to talk about is a tool that is a nice to have, but you don't really need it, and that is a paint depth gauge. So some people will drive a bunch of fear into you saying, oh, you cannot polish your car without a paint depth gauge. You have to get every single reading on every single panel for you to polish it. It's not true. 99.5% of detailers out there do not have one of these. I promise you that. It's going to measure the amount of material on your vehicle surface. So any type of primer, color coat, clear coat, it's going to measure how much material is above that metal there. Some nicer paint depth gauges will be able to distinguish between the primer or the color coat and the clear coat. It's a good, just general gauge to see, well, how much paint does your car have on it? But in the case that you have a newer vehicle, or you know it's never been polished before, or it's been relatively maintained, then it's not something that I would really put a whole lot of worry or stress into. But if you want to go above and beyond and you want to buy one just for that nice insurance in your head and that sense of security, go ahead and do it. But for everybody else that is just a little bit worried, all we do is we change up the aggressiveness of our polishing pads, which is what I'm going to get to next, because this is where you can fine tune how much cut you're looking for and how much material you actually want to remove from your car in the first place. So going straight into our polishing pads, you have to have this with the machine. You cannot polish your car without pads. So you need to invest into some good polishing pads. Now there's so many different options out there. I'm gonna make this very, very simple. There's a lot of big pad manufacturers out there, but I wouldn't skimp out and buy cheap pads that you just saw on sale on Amazon, because not all foam is created equally and not all foam is intended for certain types of paint polishing. I would invest into the brand names and buy good polishing pads because they're durable, they're gonna last you a long time. Let's talk about the differences between polishing pads. This is very, very simple. The most common type of polishing pad is going to be made out of foam. I would say most polishing pads are going to be made out of foam, especially when it comes to using a dual action polisher. Foam is great because there's different densities of foam that you can buy that allow different levels of cut. The firmer the foam is, generally speaking, the more cut we're going to get from our polishing session. The softer the foam is, the finer level of cut we're gonna get. And it's gonna do a really good job at finishing out the paint and really bringing out some gloss and really bringing out some clarity. So each manufacturer is going to color code their foam to different levels of cut. So generally speaking, a yellow foam pad, like this is just one from Buff and Shine here, is gonna be more of kind of a medium light cut. It's not gonna be anything crazy. This is a great starting point for 99% of people out there. Go with yellow, go with orange, you're totally fine. Other options here, besides foam, I'm using the Rupes pads for example here. We have a Hybrid Wool. This is a blue pad. They call it their coarse pad, which is going to offer a pretty decent level of cut. This is great for something like a BMW with hard clear coat, or a car that's got a pretty gnarly scratch that you kind of have to remove some material through. Next up here, we have a microfiber pad. So microfiber, again, really common in automotive detailing for polishing. A very small percentage of people are going to need microfiber. Microfiber, generally speaking, offers and can offer a higher level of cut, but it could also finish out quite nicely depending on the style of microfiber. So this one is more of a light medium cut microfiber, but they have some heavier cutting versions. Microfiber is great for extremely hard clear coat. Microfiber, generally speaking, can remove sanding marks as well as wool, but builds up a lot of heat. So the downside of microfiber is that once you start adding product to the microfiber, it really starts holding in a lot of compound, it can build up a lot of heat, and it can start glazing the pad, meaning that pad doesn't look pretty, right? Meaning you're gonna have to do a lot more maintenance on something like microfiber. My preference is a wool pad. This is a medium cut wool. It's called the yellow wool from Rupes. There's other manufacturers that make similar types of pads. This is great because wool, generally speaking, doesn't build heat as much as microfiber does. And because of the fibers on here, they're a little bit more flowy and they're a little bit more, I would say, cushiony, meaning that you have more area for product to go into if you're consistently using a compound or a polish. Now, one thing I would want to cover is going to be pad maintenance and cleaning. So when you are going through and you are polishing, some people like to use this pad like it's the last pad they'll ever use in their entire life. And they want to keep using it until it's absolutely disintegrating. Don't do that. Whenever it comes to buying polishing pads, buy multiple. If you are polishing a vehicle, you want to have a minimum of probably 4 pads. The reason for that is that whenever you're polishing and you're going through, you're building up heat on any type of pad that you're using. And when you're combining that with compound or polish, it can build up more heat and it starts degrading the pad. It starts softening the foam starts kind of sinking in, and then the hook and loop material here on the back, which is like a Velcro, will actually start peeling off, and that's not good. You do not want that. What I'm trying to say is that pad maintenance while you're polishing is key. There's pad washers out there that exist where you can wash your pad as you're going, or just something as simple as a brush, where you can brush out the compound, brush out the polish, and then continue on, or you can use compressed air to blow out your pad as well. I preferably like pad washers. I like brushes like this. Compressed air is fine, but I find that when you start blowing abrasives, they start flying in the air. And if they're in the air, what does that mean? They're in your lungs, right? What also it means is that you're putting all that crap back on the paint, which I don't really like either. So ideally, I like to minimize my mess when it comes to cleaning up my pads. But this is a very important tool to have, especially if you don't have compressed air or a pad washer. You just want to be brushing out those pads ever so often. And once they start building up with too much heat and too much compound, take them off. Give them a break, swap pads, go to a different pad. And then the dirty ones, you can throw these in your washing machine and wash them with rag stretches or a dedicated detergent. And then you can either air dry them or tumble dry them, or you can just rinse them out into the sink. Spray some all-purpose cleaner on them, push all the compound out and let it air dry and move on to a different pad. Basically, protect your investment. So next up here, we need to talk about the compound and polish itself. While yes, there's a lot of different brands out there and there's a lot of different variations of those products, it's kind of like the pad thing, right? There's different levels of cut that you may need depending on your clear coat. Compounds are the same thing, right? People will make different levels of cut and abrasives within a compound or polish to allow more cut or less cut. A compound is the bare minimum of what you need for this type of job. So compounds and polishes, those technically are 2 different types of products, but people use that term pretty freely, right? They say, I'm compounding, I'm polishing. The names are interchanged, but there's 2 different purposes. A compound is meant to cut through a majority of paint defects, scratches, and really drive a lot more clarity back into that paint. It's meant to remove sanding marks and really restore the finish. And compounding is what people often do in body shops, meaning that you'll have paint work done and your paint has orange peel on it. Well, they'll sand it down and they will compound the paint to make it look flat and nice. That's what compounding is. It is going through and removing heavy defects. Polishing is the next step after compounding if you choose to make it a next step. Polishing is slightly refining the paint with a polish that contains less abrasives. Typically, it contains more polishing oils that allows the pad to spin freely. It allows you to remove those microscopic scratches that compounding may introduce in that process. And so polishing and polishes are a different style of product than a compound. So can you use a compound or a polish? Yes. Absolutely, you can. I know that's probably confusing, but if I'm looking to remove a major defect and I feel like the finish I got from my compound is good enough, then that means I only had to use a compound. If I have a polish that I want to slightly fix an area or add a little bit more gloss, I can use just a polish. And I don't have to pre-compound it if I don't want to. If I don't have to remove heavy defects, I can just polish it and be happy with that. Ultimately, you need, at bare minimum, for what we're doing, a compound or polish. And what I'm using today is called the Last Cut. But what I like about this is that it's silicone free, it's low dust, has no fillers in it, it's body shop safe, works well with microfiber and foam pads, and compatible with dual action and rotary machines. This is one of my favorite compounds of all time. I've been using this for close to 10 years now. I've yet to find one that I really like more than this. After you've gone through and you've compounded your paint and you've removed defects, what do you do then? You gotta wipe it off. You gotta wipe off the compound or the polish after you're done. And for that, we recommend premium microfiber towels from us here at the Rag Company. This right here is called the Creature Edgeless. This is a 70-30 blend microfiber towel, and what I like about this is that it's dual-sided. You have a short nap side on one side, and you have a long nap side on the other. So if I have some really tough compound or excess paint that I'm trying to remove from a surface after polishing, I'll use the short nap side because I'll have basically a little bit more bite to it to remove. And then if I'm doing final finishing, I'll use the long nap side as it is a softer and more kind of plush feel. So now let's talk about this car behind us and what we had to do to prep this before jumping into this step right here. We have our test subject for today, this Subaru WRX STI. And this thing is pretty hammered. It's got tons and tons of surface scratches and dents and all sorts of stuff all over it. What we need to do is go through and fix this, but we need to talk about the first steps. When it comes to polishing and using a machine on your vehicle, the most important thing that you can do is wash the car. Get all of the dirt off the vehicle. Following that, you're gonna wanna go through and clay the vehicle with a clay scrubber, a clay bar, something of that nature to remove most of the surface contaminants. And the best way to know if your surface is contaminated is that if you take your pan to a clean vehicle and you rub it and it feels kind of gritty, chances are it's contaminated. You can also do the plastic baggie test, put your hand in a plastic baggie, run it over the surface, and if you feel a bunch of little bumps and kind of grittiness, probably contaminated. So you'll wash your car, then go through, clay it, and we do have a full video on that showing you how to go through that process, which is very helpful and sets you up for success for this step right here. Now, the next thing to do would be to just inspect your paint. Grab yourself a paint inspection light and go through and examine what is the current condition of your paint. What do the scratches look like? And you can identify certain things on the car that maybe bother you. And so a good way to do this is to go around and do the blue tape test. Grab a piece of blue tape, rip it off and go, here's a scratch here, here's a scratch here, here's a defect here, here's a defect here. So you can note that mentally that that's what you're trying to improve or that's what you're trying to remove, right? But generally speaking, you want to just identify what you're trying to do. And then the other thing is just give yourself time. You want to be able to give yourself plenty of time to do a good job. And this is whether you're running a detail business or just doing this yourself as an enthusiast. From here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab a light and show you exactly what an inspection looks like and what I'm looking for when it comes to scratches. And then we're gonna get this machine ready to rock and roll and go from there. So let's talk about lighting for just a quick second before we jump into the inspection. Not only the talk about lighting and the importance of lighting, but also your general environment when it comes to paint polishing. Lighting is huge. You want to get yourself into ideally a shaded area, a garage with okay lighting, decent lighting, enough to see, and you want to get yourself something that is going to be your control lighting. And what I'll do is I'll turn this thing on, put it on a nice setting like that, and I will come to my paint and I will start examining it. And what I'm looking for is the quality of the paint around the light itself. So I'm pretending that this is my sun and I'm looking through, and immediately, because I've done this for so long, I can see that this paint is wasted. If you're looking and you say, oh, I see only a little scratch here, or a little scratch here, a little scratch here, then that means your paint's probably in good condition. But if you take this to your paint and it looks like you are looking at Charlotte's Web, that's a problem. That means you got a lot of scratches and a lot of swirls. Can we improve this? Absolutely. I think we can actually make this a ton better. So what I'm trying to say is lighting is very important. They have headlamps out there, which are great. You can actually wear the headlamp the entire time that you're polishing paint, which is awesome. You could get good lighting in your garage or shop, or if you have to do this outside and you're in an apartment complex or whatever, and you still want to go through this, get yourself a good handheld inspection light with a good quality LED on it that again replicates kind of that sun. Just one more very important thing that we need to talk about, the machine polisher. The last big tip. If you are so stressed and so scared to improve the quality of your paint, you should simply not do it. Chances are you could potentially screw up. There's people out there that love their car so much that they want to polish and they want to do the good job, but they're really nervous about it. And they're so scared of doing damage that they inevitably actually do damage, or they don't think about something properly. If you're super scared, you're super worried, this video is meant to make you feel better about it. But even after this, if you're still worried, then I don't recommend doing it. I recommend taking this to a professional who's willing to do it and happy to do it, right? We're ready to jump into our machine polishing. So let's talk about the machine itself really quick, all right? So you have our machine. I talked about the backing plate. This is a 5-inch backing plate on here with a 15mm throw. To turn on the machine, you have a trigger here on the bottom. 99% of machines have a trigger on the bottom. I have my speed settings here, right? 1 through 6. Generally speaking, you'll probably be polishing somewhere around a 3 to 4, depending on the panel, depending on whether you're vertical or horizontal. We're trying to keep this pad spinning no matter what. And in order to do that, we need to sometimes adjust our speed, adjust our angle, and adjust pressure. We have a cord here. The machine accepts a pad. So what we're gonna do is grab ourselves a pad. Easiest way to do this, take your finger the hole. Find your finger, find your center of the backing plate here, put your finger to the center, and then kind of eyeball it, and you want to line it up to where that pad is placed perfectly in the center of that backing plate. And you'll know it's perfect when you start spinning it and you have an even amount of edging on the pad itself all the way around. And that is pretty dang perfect. There's one other quick tip. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my machine, and I have this kind of white edge on my backing plate, which is nice. And then I also have some white edging here on the back of the pad. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a mark right there. I'm gonna make a mark somewhere on the opposite side, maybe right here. I'm making the marks because I wanna make sure that this pad is spinning. No matter what I'm doing, at whatever angle, at whatever panel I'm doing, if this pad isn't spinning, it's not doing anything. It's literally just vibrating there in place. This is probably one of the biggest things that people mess up with when it comes to polishing. They think they're doing something, but they're not. And that right there is going to tell me, is my angle correct? Is this spinning like I should? And if it's not, adjust my angle, adjust my speed. From here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab our compound and we're gonna do a test spot. So a test spot should be something that you do in generally an inconspicuous area, and you want to do it as it's going to set the foundation for probably the rest of the polishing session. I know that I need to start with a relatively less aggressive pad. So I'm going to go with the yellow pad. This is kind of a medium to light cut pad. And I'm going to grab my Versatile Cut compound. This is a compound I use on pretty much every single type of paint, every single type of vehicle, so I've never had any issues with it. I pop the top on it after shaking it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some dots to my pad here. 2, 3, 4. Pretty much all I need to really get started. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my finger and make sure that it's not some giant mound of product and just kind of lightly brush it into the pad. The reason why I'm doing this is because when I start this machine up, I don't want to fling that compound all over me or all over the car. As long as you're getting product on the pad and reducing dry spots in general, that's what we're going for. I'm going to take my machine, I'm going to take my cord, I'm going to kick it over my shoulder just like that. If you're running a cordless machine, this is not an issue. With a cord, always kick it over your shoulder, because if it's not over my shoulder, it's on the car. Don't want to do that, right? Don't do this. This is gonna be my test spot area. I'm gonna probably mask out mentally that I'm gonna do a foot by a foot by a foot, just this right here. Medium cut pad, medium light cut pad, 1 compound. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to set my speed to 1, and I'm going to bump the trigger a couple times. I'm gonna move it around, and I'm gonna look. I got some good coverage. I got compound all over this. I'm gonna look at my pad. My pad still has compound on it, and my marks are still on there, so I think I'm in a pretty good spot. So we're gonna keep it on the 1 setting right here, and I'm going to make sure my pad is flat, and I'm going to turn the machine on, and I'm going to do a cross-hatching method. Basically an S. I'm gonna go like this, 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 and then upper S, or I guess vertical S, and then I'm going to inspect my work after about, I don't know, a little bit of time. Once you start getting the hang of this and you start identifying what that feels like and looks like, you'll start to see the compound, the polish start to break down. You start being able to see through that pad, that compound into the paint to say, okay, I'm doing something. That's what we're trying to identify, is how long do we have to do that until we see that we're doing something. Making my S. Again, I'm looking at those marks, which are very visible, to make sure that my pad is spinning. I'll come back up, make sure those are spinning. And then, to know that I'm actually gonna start doing some real work, I'm just gonna bump up the speed to about a 2, and now I'm really spinning, so that's good. Go through, same concept, make sure that's still spinning, adjust my angle. I'm adjusting the angle of the machine with my right hand, so my trigger hand, so I can turn it this way, and I'm just simply guiding the head and stabilizing the head with this hand. I'm just making sure that it's not excessively vibrating. So see what I mean? Vibrating, not vibrating, vibrating, not vibrating. But I mean, I can still polish with one hand. So taking my hand here, going through. Some people will go, oh no, Anthony, you're running that machine on the paint for a long period of time, right? Are you worried that you're removing too much material? Unless I was running quite literally a sanding disc, I'm not going to cut through that much paint in that amount of time. I'm probably barely doing anything. This is a good thing because now I can say, do I bump up my speed on my machine? Do I add more product? Do I change my pad? I'm doing this just to identify how soft is this clear coat, how hard is this clear coat, and what are we working with? So let's grab a towel and do a quick wipe off. So I got my towel here. I flipped it to the short nap side of my Creature Edgeless here. So this is like the shorter side that I like to use. And I have my inspection light. Come in here and we'll show you what this looks like. It's a very easy to remove compound, barely any pressure from my hand. I'm going through and I'm inspecting and I go, look at that. I was able to remove quite a few of those surface scratches without really having to put any amount of major pressure, and I didn't really have to bump up the speed that high. That tells me that this clear is really easy to correct, but it's also probably pretty easy to scratch. The reason why it looks so bad in the first place, honestly, is because it's an easy clear coat to scratch. It's a soft clear coat. It's a Japanese clear coat. Most people would be happy with this. I'm not gonna be happy. Could I run that same pad and that compound again and really try to like go to town, right? Maybe, potentially. But rather than go to a higher speed and apply more pressure, which we don't want to apply more pressure, there's no reason to do that. All I want to do is just switch up my pad style. I want to go to now a medium cut wool pad that will keep the heat down low, that will offer me a little bit more cut. I'll do a little bit more working time at potentially a higher speed, and then I will actually check out my product after that. And I think that that's going to remove some of these deeper scratches. At that point, that might be the move for either the whole car or at least part of the car for this process. I'm going to bump up my level of cut. I'm going to do it just by changing my pad. That's it. I'm going to keep about the same speed, same compound, same everything else. I'm just going to change my pad to a heavier cutting pad. Because when I looked through the light, I could see that we added a lot more clarity, right? But when I actually stand back and use the reference lighting from the overhead LEDs here, I can actually see so many scratches. Like, it's insane how many scratches are still left on the surface. Because what happens is when I'm using my reference light, I'm peering probably through that top layer of clear, right? And I'm looking at all the metallic in the base coat. And I go, wow, that looks pretty good, right? Well, changing up my lighting angle and my reference point, yeah, it looked pretty good from that angle, but there's still so many surface scratches and so many of those deeper scratches that are revealing themselves at other angles. So back to the importance of lighting and environment, look at it from different angles. Stand back, look at it, inspect it. Don't go crazy, but you know, I can still see that I'm gonna cut more. So I'm gonna take my brush here. I'm going to wedge this between my pad because sometimes these can get kind of stuck on, and pull that off. There's my polishing pad, and I'm going to probably come back and use this again, to be honest, because I might use this for a different panel or a different area of the car. So throw that there on my windshield, just facing the right side up. And I'm gonna go through and take my Wool pad here, finger in the hole, find the other hole. Ooh, pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Wool, generally speaking, will release wool fibers. One thing you can do really quick, take your hand, brush the pad, take your brush. Then I'm going to take my product here, shake it up again, go through, add some dots. Now with a wool pad, because there is more depth to the fibers, I'm going to take my finger and really kind of start spreading the product in. And I like doing this just to reduce dry spots that could cause marring and just make sure I'm actually getting enough product on everything. Once I've done that, kind of do a quick brushing effect back and forth. I'm gonna keep my speed back at 1. I'm gonna bump the trigger. I'm gonna crank it up to about a speed of 2, and that will be my starting working speed, and I may bump it up to a 3 as I start going. Again, no pressure. I'm not taking my hand and pushing on the hood. This is just there for guidance. This is here to stabilize and kind of guide me in the direction of my angle. Whenever you're polishing clear coat, you're building up heat. You're building up heat on the pad, and you're building up heat on the panel, meaning that your clear coat, your paint that you're polishing is building up heat. What happens when things heat up? Your paint will expand due to the heat, and so some of those scratches, some of those defects may look to be like they're improving, right? But you're heating up the clear to a certain point where it's temporarily fixing them. So what you wanna do is, if you're ever building up too much heat, or if you're in a 120-degree garage and you're polishing paint, try to let the panel cool down before jumping into that next step. Oftentimes I find that when people try to overcycle an area or just really do too many things at once on one particular spot, you tend to kind of heat up the clear too much and you start getting results that aren't really what you're looking for. Here we go. Speed setting at 2. I'm actually gonna lock my trigger now, so use the trigger lock. And again, my S pattern, S up, S down, S up, S down, S up, S down. Left, right, left, right, left, down, up, down, up. So what I'm looking for here is I'm actually seeing kind of like a trail of, we'll call it like clarity, right? And I'm looking at my overhead lighting and I see that my compound is starting to kind of separate, maybe even kind of dry out just a little bit. Not bad, but just enough to where I can tell that I've been working in that area for a decent amount of time. Now the goal isn't to do this until there's no compound left. We want to make sure there's product on here, but we want to be able to start seeing maybe some spots where maybe there's just some breakthrough of the compound. So we got our light here, inspection light. I'm gonna go through again. We're getting somewhere here, people. I can actually see now, not only is my clarity amazing, right? And I can really see a lot of that flake coming through. I'm gonna stand back, turn off the light, and again, use this overhead reference light to see, did I remove some of those scratches that were seen at this angle? Yes, yes I did. That's gonna be my combo. So I'm going to use that wool pad. I'm gonna use that compound right there, and that would be it. That's all I have to do. What we're gonna do is bring in, check this out, and then we're gonna knock out a large area here to show you what the working time and natural speed should be. And then we're gonna answer questions about what happens around your ridges of your body lines here. So now that we have our game plan, our test spot is done, we have a good idea of what our process is, now what do we do? I will plan to polish the car based on my environment, the type of car, and just what's gonna be most efficient, right? So for example, the reason why we don't polish the sides of a vehicle first before jumping up to the roof, if I polish the sides and they're all looking really pretty, and I'm polishing the roof and I'm leaning up against the sides, I'm gonna scratch the sides. I don't wanna do that with my jeans or my pants or my belt. I wanna make sure that I am saving the sides for last. So what I'll do is do all my horizontal surfaces first, and then I'll save all the side stuff for last, because that means I'm not gonna be leaning up on these things again, right? Now, when you have something like a hood, do you polish the whole thing and then wipe off the compound, or do you polish sections at a time? The answer is sections at a time, but you need to define what those sections are for that vehicle and your environment and what you're working with. What I see here is I see a hood that is the shape of, let's just say, a square. I'll take my square and I go, well, if I cut things in fourths, right, I have 4 squares to work with. I already kind of knocked out 1 square, So do I move to my next square here, my next square here, my next square here? Well, generally speaking, yes. When it comes to body lines, you don't want to spend too much time polishing on a body line. And the reason for that is that when they're spraying material from the factory and putting paint on the vehicle, those body lines, generally speaking, will not have as much material as the other areas because you have a raised edge, meaning that that material, when it's sprayed, will probably be lesser than the rest of the other flatter areas. So I don't want to be riding a body line for too long. I want to mask up to that body line or visually plan out that I'm going to that body line. But then a spoiler like this, right? Well, I could take my machine like this and run over the top. The side's gonna be kind of weird. The back is gonna be kind of weird. Well, that's where we get into potentially buying an additional machine, right? So a 3-inch machine would do a much better job of polishing that than anything else. And so that's something to consider that we'll cover in a future video when we get to some more advanced techniques. But for right now, we have one machine to do the one job. So I'm gonna say, let's map out this, and save this maybe for last or target this first, depending on what we need to do. But let's go ahead, finish out the rest of this side here, and let me at least show you what that looks like in kind of somewhat real time. So grab my machine, I'm gonna turn it on. I'm gonna brush out some of that compound, just really quick. Turn it off. Grab my product, make sure it's already shucking up. A couple more pea-sized drops on the pad, and then most of the time at this point, you don't need to work it in with your finger. You can probably just spread it on the paint. What I'll do is take this, cord over the shoulder, and I'm gonna go ahead and tackle pretty much this entire section here. So I'm gonna treat it like I'm doing the thirds. And I am going to briefly run back over the area I've just done, just to make sure everything looks pretty universal. I'm gonna work at a speed of 3 now. I'm gonna work up to this edge here. Adjust my angle as needed. I'm gonna come down to my hood, making my S shape. Make sure the pad is spinning. Looking pretty good. Back up. I'm still at a speed of 3, but you'll notice that my arm speed has increased a little bit. It's increased because I'm trying to cover a larger surface area and make sure that my compound or nothing is really drying out. So I'll come up to that and call it. Now, what I'm noticing is that my compound is kind of starting to dry out a little bit over here, right? Meaning that that paint is probably kind of dry and sucked up some of that moisture. But this felt really good over here, right? So what do? Do I have to wipe this off immediately and then call it, right? And then go back and start again? No, I just know that my pad's feeling a little dry, kind of getting a little bit matted down. So I'm gonna go ahead, do a quick little brush, nothing crazy. And I'm gonna go ahead and just add one little dollop of compound right there. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna be my little kind of re-moisturizer for this area here that's kind of dried out. So going back through, I'm gonna crank up my speed to about a 3.5. Continue doing my S. Go back up here. Make sure it's still spinning. And I call it right there. Now, if you made it this far in the video, some of you might be wondering, Anthony, you didn't tape off the trim. You didn't tape off the car. What's the deal? Don't you have to tape everything off the compound? I like to use compounds and polishes that don't need trim. Very simple. Last cut compound, the one I'm using right now, not a trim stainer. does not contain enough solvent or abrasives that drive themselves into plastic to cause heavy, heavy staining. If I cross over into a headlight and touch that, if I hit trim up here, I'm not worried about it. It's not that big of a deal. It wipes right off. So again, there are certain compounds and polishes that are non-trim staining. Another reason why I love this stuff so much. So now that I've gone over this whole panel here, you want to make sure that we're wiping all the product off, and then we're gonna re-inspect the full area. I know that I've now worked this area more than I have maybe this area over here. Makes sense, I did my test spot here, but I think that the finish should be relatively close. So taking my towel, it's looking pretty good. There is some deeper scratches down here in the bottom and a lot of rock chips. Oh, so many rock chips, it's not even funny. That finish is actually looking pretty good. I'm gonna stand back here, kind of eyeball it. Okay, that looks really good. I'm gonna grab my light here. You know what? For half the time I spent than I did here, that's within a percentage or two of each other. That looks really, really good. I've now done a third of the hood. I've polished this with success. I'm happy with that. I know what my process is, and I'm going to continue around the rest of the hood. So what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna show you just a quick example of a 3-inch machine on something like this right here, because it's kind of odd. Anything that's odd or feels dangerous, do not polish it. This right here is a cordless machine by Rupes. So this is their little LHR mini 12mm throw, and it's all handheld, right? And it's got plenty of power. So same process, really quick. If you guys enjoyed this video, now would be a great time to subscribe. We like making this kind of stuff. We think it's fun. And also press the like button, because now you'll know how to polish your car and you'll remember this stuff forever. Compound product on here. I'm gonna go ahead, bump, 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 bump. Set my speed to a speed of about 2. S shapes. S shapes. Ooh, look at that. That is a lot better. And you know what's funny? Remember all that vibration I was having? That's gone, right? So that feels way smoother. Go through. And then on my sides, look at this. That is low stress. Low, low stress. I can now kind of cut up to that edge. Watch my backing plate. Oh, not really spinning as much, so I'm gonna go ahead and crank up my speed to a 4. There we go, now I'm spinning. That might be a little too high. We're gonna go back down to a 3. There we go, that's the sweet spot right there. Go around. And then my back, this area here, I can get to that. And then this is the machine that I will use to get between and get around the windshield washer sprayers. Because a machine like this, with a 12mm throw, a small backing plate, is not going to damage a windshield washer nozzle. But a 15mm throw DA with a 5-inch backing plate or a 6-inch backing plate, that hits that, a good chance the thing's gonna break off. So we wanna work around that delicately and safely. And the best way to do that is gonna be by changing a smaller machine, or just being really mindful that you are whipping a big old backing plate around something like that. But you saw how fast I was able to polish that area out on that hood scoop almost effortlessly. I'm using that same pad style I was using, same compound I was using, which means that my result here should be pretty much identical as the rest of the hood here. And you know what? For the most part, it is. It's a plastic hood scoop, but that actually looks really, really nice. I'm happy about that. I'm gonna go ahead, polish out half of this hood and show you what a true 50/50 looks like, and you can actually see the full benefits of why polishing really matters. So we just finished up with half of the hood, and this looks pretty good. There is still countless rock chips on this car, but this looks really, really good. I'm taking the light to it and inspecting it. I have a universal finish throughout the entire area. The hood scoop looks great. I use the 3-inch to kind of get back here around the hood scoop, work up to that edging there. For a 1 pad, 1 compound, 2 machines, this looks great. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video, and I hope that you learned something new. I hope you learned multiple things. As always, if you guys love the detailing content and you want to see more, please make sure to give us a big thumbs up, subscribe down below for more, and stay tuned for more videos right here at The Rag Company.